Okay, it is 1:30. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. Hopefully you're in the right room. This is the advanced procurement track, and this is the successfully navigating small business subcontracting as a small business. If you're not in the right room, it's too late. You're stuck. Doors are closing. We've got two wonderful speakers today, and just anybody else need to grab this QR code? We'll have it up one more time in just a minute, but like we talked about this session, housekeeping notes. Please take note of the emergency exits. There's one behind us, behind me, in front of you, and there's also the doors in the back that we came through in case we need to move. Please remember to silence your phones and thank our sponsors. And all questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions, just write them down. The session is being recorded, so we ask that if you'd like to ask a question at the end, please come to one of the microphones in the center and speak to the microphone so that the audio is picked up on the recording. All the sessions will be available afterwards in the Attendee Service Center after the conference. So here are our sponsors. Please remember to thank them as you see them this week. Now, for the introduction of our speakers. We've got two wonderful speakers today. Our first one is Meredith Koons, and she is the Director of Marketing and Small Business Programs at Conti Federal. I goofed that up earlier, too. Conti Federal. And Meredith has a background as a kickboxing instructor. She has a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's a Notre Dame nut. And she's trying to get to every national park in the U.S. I've met a couple of other people recently that have said that, so it's very ambitious. Our second speaker is Samuel Alvarez, and he is the president of AMEX Electric, and he is a U.S. Navy veteran. He has a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he's also an instructor. So if you picked up on that, save your tomatoes because both of our speakers will kick your butt. He's also a fisherman, hunter, golfer, and a huge Dallas sports fan, especially the Dallas Stars, which surprised me because I wasn't aware that Texas had an ice hockey team. So very cool. Okay, we are going to get started now. So the reason that Conti Federal and AMEX are presenting together today is that they're both currently working together at the Fort Worth Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth, Texas. In fact, since this project started, they've begun a second project working together, and AMEX has just very recently been awarded their 8A certification. So one last time, we're going to get started with a poll in just a second. If you haven't grabbed that QR code, now's your chance. 3, 2, 1. Still a couple of phones up. Okay, here we go. You'll have 30 seconds to answer the question here. So the question is, which industry do you primarily work in? Architecture, engineering, construction, both, or neither? Which in case we'd ask why you're here. So remember that this session is also for both architect, engineering, and construction, even though it's being presented from the general contractor's point of view today. The lessons are valuable and will apply to both. Okay, and there are our results. So we've got 41% of attendees in the room who are on the architecture engineering side, 34 on the construction side, 14 work in both, 10% neither. That's unexpected. Okay, welcome everybody. Well, let's welcome Samuel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's do another poll to see the experience level everyone has in federal contracting.
I think you might have to hit.
Do I need to hit it? Okay. We have Call Me a Pro at 16%, 31% that I have no idea what I'm doing, and 53, I've done a few contracts but could use some tips. Okay. Very good, very good. Well, I'm part of those few that didn't know what I was doing and what I was getting myself into. I understand. After doing commercial contracting for about 11 years, I decided I wanted to get into the federal contracting side of it, mainly because it's something that I believe in, and I want to support our military and our federal government in the best way that I know, and that is in construction. Besides the actual construction part of it, there were so many new things that I needed to learn. I look forward to being here today to share this with you and talk about my experiences as a small business who is currently working on not just one, but 2 federal projects at this current moment. Oh, I apologize. Not used to doing slides. The project at the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base, taught me something very quickly. It taught me how to react and adapt. One of the first weeks of the project, the site conditions were not what we thought they were going to be. There were some overhead power lines that were keeping the demolition team from actually getting started. I received a call from our project manager on that site and immediately had to jump into fire and figure out a way to get around it. It took me a while to come up with plans and all that, while at the same time making sure that all the submittals and paperwork that were needed were quickly getting in on time. It required a lot of coordination, and that wasn't originally planned. I think I went back too far.
I think you can hit the back.
Yeah, the down arrow key.
Okay. Sorry, it threw me off. Did I miss it?
Oh, yep. So this is where you look.
Oh, okay. So this is where, okay. Sorry, it threw me off. I do apologize. So how can a small business who is expected to act and function as a large business ensure mission success when we may not have the same experience or resources that a large business does? Meredith is going to walk through 6 core competencies that every small business should know how to promote success. I'm here to tell you that you do not have to be intimidated, as I am right now in front of you, when it comes to federal contracting. Rather, you have an opportunity from day one to function and act as one as an equal partner with your prime contractor. It doesn't matter how big or small your business is. We all have equal seats at the table. We all have equal voices to ensure that we are achieving the mission.
Hi everyone, thank you Sammy. So I'm here today to share with you the 6 things that every prime contractor wishes their subcontractors knew. So while Conti Federal, we're considered a large prime, we're actually more of a mid-sized global firm who got our start as a small business ourselves back in 1906. In fact, under the Environmental Remediation NAICS code, we're still considered a small business today. I share this with you because we really truly understand the obstacles and barriers that small businesses often face. And so I hope between Sammy and myself, you're going to have the perspective of both the large business side as well as the small business and how these 6 core competencies can really improve your next project. So the great thing is that they're really simple concepts. There's no additional training needed. You don't have to spend hours studying. It's just understanding and utilizing these 6 core competencies to facilitate your project readiness. And I promise it's also going to really help you become a powerful partner on your next project. So let's get to it. So the first one is honesty and transparency. That seems pretty basic, right? Pretty simple, obvious. But what we're talking about here is make sure you're being realistic about your ability to perform the full scope of the project. Primes want partners who are transparent about their resources during the procurement phase and understand any constraints or limitations that you think you might face. And you want to share that not just in the beginning of the project, but throughout, because as the project evolves, so may your constraints. I promise, the last thing any prime wants is to set anyone up for failure. So ways you can mitigate that is make sure you're setting yourself with realistic, attainable goals versus unrealistic stretch goals. Not being realistic causes problems for every participant on the project. And our clients depend on us to do as we say and say what we mean to meet mission success. Complete and accurate information is the only way to keep a project moving in the right direction. Which segues pretty nicely into the next core competency, which is active participation and communication. Small businesses should bring value to the process and not see themselves as an order taker. I see it too often, a small business, whether it be because it's small or subcontractor, they put themselves in a subordinate position when you really have a voice and a seat at the table, like Sammy said. And so you're going to hear me say this a lot throughout the presentation, but every member of any project team is a valued member and should feel empowered and motivated to speak up, whether that be the good, the bad, or the ugly. Believe me, there's no such thing as too much communication on a project. So whether it be a sudden obstacle, a missed milestone, longer than anticipated lead times, that's information that needs to be shared and shared timely. Maybe you hit a milestone early. That's awesome, that's great. Share that information, not just for a pat on the back, but those are opportunities that we can potentially capitalize on and find other schedule improvements. Maybe your materials are on back order. Certainly not ideal, but needs to be shared, right? Don't hide that information because we all need to adapt accordingly when things like that happen. So the way Conti Federal really approaches our projects is one of a partnering mindset, and the way we accomplish this is through our own proprietary construction management system that we've dubbed Warrior Lean. And without going into too much detail on what that is, the core premise of it is we've combined a lot of the lean construction principles, and we've married it with a war-fighting mentality, right? So we have a plan, but we have to also be agile and nimble enough in the field that when the unexpected happens, we know how to react and adapt. And anyone that's done construction before knows the only thing to ever expect is the unexpected, right? So one way we accomplish this is by holding daily huddles, make-ready plans, our pull planning sessions. We have every trade participate in these activities. Again, you're not an order taker. You need to participate and have a voice and make sure that we can get ahead of any risks that might be on the horizon. And that comes through conversation and talking it out. Because at the end of the day, communication, collaboration, and congruence is essential for any project to succeed. And remember, everyone is dependent on one another on a project. So it doesn't matter if you're doing different jobs, different trades, you're still dependent on everyone. And so we need to not work in silos. So now we're going to get to everyone's favorite topic, navigating administrative demands. So extensive and detailed paperwork is a reality in federal contracting, right? There's no use ignoring it, and there's no use fighting it, even though everyone tries to. So for example, submittals, change management, often requires extensive documentation where any error can lead to miscommunication and project delays. But we also understand that small businesses might not feel prepared for the level of detail that's required on large government contracts. But we do. We have those resources and the process knowledge, and we would rather you leverage us and that knowledge to ensure accurate delivery rather than risk the mission just because you don't feel comfortable or confident in what's included in that. Maybe you've done dozens of contracts. Doesn't mean you can't ask questions, right? Too many times, nobody's gonna say, oh, well, you hit the threshold, you did 10 projects, we can't help you now. You can still ask questions and ask for clarification when needed. In fact, we encourage our small businesses to do a rehearsal with us. So we actually sit side by side and go through the submittal process together so we can all understand what the expectations are. This rehearsal of concept makes sure we're all on the same page, but also ensures that we're being proactive in accuracy rather than reactively fixing problems. So instead of fighting it, just embrace it. It is what it is, right? Spend a little extra time on the front end, and I promise it's going to pay dividends in the long run and allow you to do what you came there to do and what you do best. So number 4 is align mission, goals, and values. So it is imperative in any partnership that there's alignment between these 3 things. Mission being what we agree we're here to accomplish, goals, what and how we measure success, and values, how we're going to treat one another. Not only does it facilitate a collaborative environment, but it ensures mutual respect for one another, and it leverages the best that we all have to offer. So some of the values that we expect from our partners include, be on time and ready to work. Set that expectation with your crews up front and demand it from the beginning. A successful project is a safe project. I'm sure every prime agrees that safety is the number 1 priority on any project. And so we expect our partners to embrace that culture of safety and also respect and adhere to the protocols we have in place, because we want to ensure that every single person goes home to their families each night. The next 3 are pretty similar to what we've already talked about. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Don't change government processes, accept them and adjust as necessary. And be a problem solver. Again, we all, like I said, I'm going to say this a lot, we're all valued members of the team, we all have a voice, and we all have equal stake in the success of the project. One of the other values at Conti Federal is we really are a learning environment. And so we learn from small businesses just as much as you probably assume they're learning from us, right? It's very much a symbiotic relationship. So if there's a process not working and you know a better way or you've run into this, don't forgo that. I mean, you all have different experiences in your toolkit than we have. So raise your hand and, hey, I ran into this before. This is how we kind of overcame that obstacle. You can have that voice. Maybe we all agree on what the goals are, but the process to get there is a little murky, right? Again, raise your hand. I understand. I agree to what these goals are, but the way we get there, can we sit down and figure out a more realistic approach to hit that goal? It behooves all of us, right, to work together so we can all perform optimally. There's no benefit to anyone if we are all marching to the beats of different drummers. I know for Sammy, his company really takes customer service as a very important value for them, just as much as their technical abilities. And, if you go back to how he started the presentation, his first federal contract, day 1, he's getting a phone call that the site conditions are different than he thought. If it wasn't for his level of customer service, and he said, not my problem, figure it out, this isn't what I signed up for. Thanks to his customer service skills and having that be a core value of his, we were able to avoid quite a hefty hurdle, right? So I tell this to anyone who's looking for partners, and that can be small businesses looking for primes looking for small businesses. Do your due diligence to find partners who are going to have the same values and culture as you, right? You want to have that alignment up front because it's going to ensure that you can all accomplish what you've agreed on. Because at the end of the day, if we all agree on what we're there to accomplish, how we're going to measure success, and how we're going to behave, there really is little room to do anything but succeed. So how do you define mission success? You're probably like, well, that seems really obvious. As soon as the RFP comes out, we know exactly what we're doing, right? We know if we're constructing an F-35 aircraft hangar or we're cleaning up a Superfund site. We know what we're getting into before we even bid the project, right? That's the what. That's what we're building. Not the why, not the mission, not the purpose behind the project. So in the case of the project we're working with Samual down at the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base, we, meaning our partners, our clients, had a session, and we determined that success was advancing combat capabilities and mission readiness of the 301st Fighter Wing. That's the mission. The what, in order to achieve that, is constructing the F-35 flight simulator and squadron ops facilities, right? But the purpose and the mission is what we all want to agree on, and it's something so much bigger than just, constructing 4 walls. And so I say this, take a step back. Think about, am I just putting 4 walls on a roof together, or am I facilitating global security? Am I digging some trenches to lay some pipe, or am I actually giving clean water access to an entire community who has a contaminated water source? And so I know that a lot of our examples today are very MilCon focused, right? But we all work with a diverse range of clients. So here's a few other things, clients and ways to think of how, what your mission is. So what you're constructing is a VA community living center, but the mission and the why, the purpose, is to create a community that enriches the lives of our veterans, right? See the difference? Are you building an embassy, or are you advancing the state of U.S. foreign policy in East Africa? So, never forget how your role impacts the client's mission. What we do in this room, each and every one of us, it matters. And so you need to take that responsibility seriously, and everyone should see their part as critical to that, because we really have no room for failure when it comes to the missions we're working on. So we understand the client's mission, but we also have to be cognizant of our client's requirements. So understand where you are. Respect that they might be different rules of engagement than you're used to, right? So what do we mean? So a lot of times we're working alongside an active runway, right? As you see here, we're pouring concrete and we have an F-35 going by. So besides the logistics that goes into that, be privy to what that means from a security standpoint. Can we take pictures? Often, no, they don't, make sure you understand what the rules of the road are. If you can have existing structures or anything like that. Can you even bring a cell phone onto site, right? Maybe you can't. Can you smoke? Where can you smoke? Like, all those small details actually have a big impact. What are the traffic routes you have to take to and from the project site? There might be an access point that's closer to the project, but might not be where the client wants you to enter and exit. So understand what how that works. Federal holidays, ensure you're planning for those and including them in your schedule. I'll be the first to admit, last year I showed up at a base on Juneteenth. Guess what? They're closed. So make sure you're being cognizant of things like that. And always recognize how your actions impact operations. So, if you turn off the power to an occupied building, probably, and didn't tell anyone, probably, not gonna be too happy with everyone there. Disrupting normal flow of traffic. You're trying to bring in materials at the same time everyone's getting to work in the morning and you're holding things up. Again, small details that really make a large impact. You're a guest on these facilities. Don't be intrusive to them getting their job done and the missions they're trying to serve. Be sensitive to the environment we're working in, right, when it comes to federal work. When we are on a military installation, we actually stop for morning colors and participate. We respect our host, and so we respect their norms and traditions and participate. We all have a newspaper. We all know the world's always changing. So understand how those priorities may also change for your client as different things happen. So always understand and adapt to any changing conditions or the missions that your clients are serving. And if the prime contractor that you're working for does not supply this information, I hope by now you can ask. Raise your hand, ask these questions. It's gonna make you such a great partner rather than just sitting there silently not participating. We're being evaluated not just on whether we get the job done or not, right? It's not a pass-fail. Obviously, we wanna get the job done. But the whole process is part of this, right? And so a lot of these tools and tips are part of that process. So this is how I liken it. We all probably have a nightmare travel story, right? They lost your luggage, you had a delay, you missed your connection because of the delay, maybe you slept in the airport. So even if you made it to the final destination, you probably aren't giving that airline a really positive review, right? Well, the same thing with the projects that we're working on. It's not just that you got the task done, it's how you got there. So our teamwork, or lack thereof, is being evaluated, and it is going to affect our ability for all of us to get future work together. When we work with small businesses, we're looking to build long-standing relationships, right? We're not just trying to check a box. We're not trying to fill a quota. We're not trying to just, hey, for this role and this project, put somebody. We really want to nurture these relationships. And, if you don't believe me, I'm going to pass it back to Sammy, and he's actually going to go through these 6 core competencies and how he utilized them on his project, his first federal contract, which subsequently became a second one with us, right? So by using these tools, it allowed him to get a second job with us because he utilized them properly. So Sammy, why don't you share?
Federal contracting it's very detailed. We all know that. You don't want to miss steps because you do not want to go backwards. I will say that I've had some moments where I always wonder what I got myself into, as well as my crew. And the 6 core competencies really helped me out, through the first project and now the second one. It helped me adapt, it helped me react the way I needed to and perform, in a way that I wouldn't have expected to. In fact, following the core competencies, if not following them, I'm pretty sure that Conti wouldn't have asked me to do the second one. We wouldn't be here today. And following them, come to find out, roadblocks are inevitable. They are there. We're going to run into them. And honesty is one of the biggest things that, I believe we need to be upfront about especially when it comes to your supplies. Being an electrical contractor, lighting is one of our biggest things that, have really expanded from 2 to 4 weeks and long lead times being 4 to 6 weeks to now you're hearing 8 to 12 weeks. I wish for the earlier ones now. The way things have changed, it has really, become a roadblock for us, but not being honest with Conti, I wouldn't be here. I know that for a fact. And it's why it's important to make sure that you understand you have a voice at the table. You feel empowered to let them know what's going on. So that way we know how to plan properly and keep moving the project, keep pushing forward on the project. When doing commercial work, I was always used to the prime contractor actually doing a lot of the work and dealing with the customer and, making sure that all the paperwork it was in and doing the submittal process. Here, I'm involved with it a little bit more than normal. The administrative process is so much more detailed than I was used to. For example, when we moved the power lines at the start of the project, it didn't just require getting them moved. It required so much coordination, making sure that we were able to outline how we were going to redirect everything, making sure that all the supplies we were going to use, all the equipment was in check, it was up to par. It required us following a lot of the protocols, making sure that when we completed everything, demolition was able to start. When it comes to value alignment, we're fortunate that our prime aligns with our values of honesty and integrity. I think it would be very challenging to partner with somebody who doesn't have the same belief, that there is a mission that you both agree on and we do everything we can to get it done. I recommend that everyone do your homework, know your prime contractor, and see if it's somebody that aligns with your core values also. One of the reasons I got into federal work is because it is actually meaningful to me being a U.S. Navy veteran. One of my favorite things is morning colors. I love it. I love at 8 o'clock everybody stops, faces towards the flag, and everybody's on the same page. Even if they don't understand why, it's there. It's a great feeling. It's important for me to get back to what I believe in. As a veteran, I really do enjoy being on the military base and being able to provide a service to them, and as well as to our federal government. As Meredith mentioned, it's a privilege to work alongside of a company who takes time out of their schedule to participate in Morning Colors, and that they understand it. So before we get into the Q&A, let's see if we answered all of the burning questions for this presentation. What do I need to know once I receive work on a government contract? And I say we answered that quite extensively. First and foremost, don't be intimidated, but understand that unlike a commercial project, there are going to be many differences. Whether it be administrative process, the mission, or the environment in which you are working, protocols and procedures are varying drastically on a federal project. What resources can I tap into as a small business working with a large prime contractor? The resources that you can tap into is your prime contractor. Don't make the assumptions that if you're uncertain about something, leverage their knowledge, utilize their tools, ask them the questions, be open about, hey, I am lost. They will help you. How do I align with the missions and values of a prime contractor to ensure success? While I had the desire to get into federal contracting, I knew I needed to find the right partner to do it with. So do your homework. Know your prime contractor. If safety doesn't matter to them, then it does, and it matters to you, then it's not the right project for you. How will success be evaluated on a federal project? Honestly, I did not know that we get graded. That made me nervous. Not understanding, but now knowing that it's very crucial to continue on in the process and continue to provide a service to the federal government, then, we want to make sure we get the future work. So with that, I will now pass it back. Or, let's see,
Yeah,
did I go back? I think we.
Okay. Thank you, Meredith and Samuel. Now, this is questions and answer period. So they've went over 6 core competencies for working together. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? If so, come on up to the microphones. If not, I'll get us started. I've got a good question. As a small business, what can you do to stand out and attract the attention of a large business?
Can you hear me from here? Okay. Make sure that you have, obviously, there's probably sessions on this too about your capability statement, but make sure it really speaks to your abilities, and captures their, what you do and why you're different. I see a lot of times, I think actually we looked at yours together, right?
Correct.
And just kind of prioritizing the information on there, it's, maybe the address doesn't matter, but, making sure those differentiators are really out there. And also just make sure so I can't tell you the amount of times that small businesses have approached me and for products or services we don't use or need. So you're just kind of wasting your time. I say that very nicely, but do your homework. It does matter. So if you're kind of approaching me and you have no idea that we do construction, it doesn't really bode well, right? So make sure you're doing, just the basic research on exactly what you do. Obviously opportunities are on sam.gov. We as contractors use tools. I don't know if you're familiar. It's called Building Connected. It's a great resource, to get yourself signed up, and you'll get just fed opportunities that are related to whatever you do or the regions you work in. You can also, a lot of primes have a register button, so if there is somebody you want to work with, I know on our website, it'll right on the front homepage, on the top right corner, it says Subcontractors and Vendors, and it allows you to supply us your information, what you do, and that way when opportunities do come that are related to what you're working on, again, you're getting those opportunities directly to you. So do a little bit of homework and just, understand who the prime is. So we talked about doing homework and aligning values and so forth, but, make sure you know exactly what they're doing, where they're doing it, because honestly, that might seem so simple, but for me, makes a big difference with who we want to work with.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Please come to the microphone.
My name is Caroline Wayne. I own a small contracting company. So I have 2 questions. But before I start, we're finishing Everglades National Park water meter rehab. So that's one thing with the
Yeah.
local to the Everglades.
I will take your card.
And the second is I graduated from the AA program. Please do not say a So I have two questions. The first question is, when we started bidding, there's the specifications, they're drawings. Sometimes the specifications can be 1,800 pages. So my question is, how much do you put into the study, these specifications? But ultimately, the question is, say, if I put more study time, meaning I can only take a limited number of bids. If I put less time, meaning I won't have holes in my estimate. So when study time is limited to capture more bids, how do you handle contingency?
So, do you mean studying in terms of if you meet all of the requirements for that?
Yeah, say the big package is big package already, and then you have, say, 60 sheets of drawings. You have 1,800 pages in specifications and per bid. So you gotta devote the time to know what you're getting into.
Right.
And sometimes you don't have that much time. And then the question is, do I bid this or do I not bid? No bid on this. If I decide to bid this, and I can't put, typically the federal contract, they don't allow you to put a contingency there. How do you pad yourself enough not to, how do I say it, to accommodate the holes in the estimation? That's my question. And that's just one question I have another one.
Okay. I don't know if you have from your perspective, kind of how you handle that with all these projects, but
One of the things that I realized when helping the estimator go through this is that if it's not in the specs and it's not in your drawings, put it aside and go with the information that you have primarily. And if there are any questions, immediately put in your RFIs. That's the only way, that's the best information, the best answer I can give you in that is doing your request for information. That way, everything aligns. Now, one of the biggest things, for example, is the color of devices that we have to put in. This is an example I'm going to give you, is the specifications will say gray, for a light switch. But there's no statement on the drawing. However, you turn your submittals in and they come back, well, they want white. So the request for information is this where, are you wanting white or do we need to stick with gray? So it varies in what you're looking at, yes. On the first job, it was a lot of pages and you will miss something, It's a given, but you do your best not to.
Yes, thank you. So my second question is, in the situation you mentioned about the site condition change, and when do you negotiate the price? Because if you do it sooner, then the problem needs to be solved ASAP. If, say, there's a leaking or groundwater contaminating, whatever it is. And if you say it too late after your work was done, and then the customer would, one possibility would say, why did you say the price thing the first day when it happened?
Correct. With that, when the site condition changed for us, it was an automatic, I don't want to say assumption. We knew that we were going to have to go back and request more funding for it because it was going to impact the entire job. It was going to hold it off until somebody came up with a plan. And with that being said, everything was documented. Everything was, in writing, over conversations, followed up with emails. So immediately when you see something, bring it to their attention, make sure it's documented, so that way everybody is covering and making sure that the cost will be there. Because one of the things is you don't want to proceed if it's an unforeseen. You want to make sure that everybody's in agreement.
Right, in this situation, how do you say, I'm estimating X days of time extension or Y amount of dollars in price?
Good question. when we provided our information, we got with everybody that was going to be involved, and we gave them a timeline, and we basically gave them labor hours and gave them the cost of everything. We broke it down to the T. I mean, we broke it out completely for them so that they understand that they understood what it was going to take. And when we caught it, it didn't affect the job as much as if we would have waited on it. We were actually able to get started once the power poles went down. So it didn't impact it in the aspect of holding off for 3 or 4 months. It was just a couple of months that we were still in the process of doing our pool plan and getting everything aligned and all.
I guess one thing from things I've already said, an idea for me to remind is a supplemental time material sheets, at least the standard rates stuff for as a reference if something happens like this.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Hey, my name is Justin Cordes. I'm a structural engineer with Samual. We are a 2-year-old company, service a stable, veteran-owned small business. And myself and my team, we have years of experience in varieties of structures in the private industry. But we're finding from talking with people that we're trying to sub with, because we don't have the experience to prime yet. We don't want to step into that right now and make mistakes early on. But we're finding that people that we're talking to, and granted I haven't spoken with everyone in the room yet, so there might be some exceptions, but a lot of people want experience, but if we can't get experience to do the work, how do we, like, that whole chicken and egg
Yep.
scenario, how do you guys, or how have you guys seen that situation handled?
Well, I mean, I know for us, when we're looking for small business partners, like Sammy obviously did not have experience, right, with
No.
the F-35 Squadron Ops facility. We are always looking for the best partner. So, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone in the room, or, every prime, I guess, maybe what you're running into. But for us, there's similarities enough between projects that we can tap into. So, even though if you haven't done federal work, there's certainly, I'm sure, things from a commercial side that still are applicable to make you, stand out. And it is the chicken and the egg, right? Finding, if there is something specific you're going after, finding opportunities where you can partner maybe with somebody else. So they already have that experience to win the work, and they're bringing you along for the ride so that you can now increase your portfolio and get the experience as well. So I know for a lot of people, that's been beneficial, is finding partnering opportunities where, you can leverage their experience to now get your own experience as well. So I don't know if you have.
No, you answered it very well. I mean, it's asking the question, aligning yourself, like we said, aligning yourself, and even asking if there's a way to partner up on something. We went in this not knowing what we were getting into, and the great thing about it was, talking with the project manager and talking to other people, and them aligning us with other people that they've worked with to kind of get an idea of what we're walking into was very helpful in the situation. So, I strongly suggest finding somebody that you could, talk to and see what you could come up with as to get into it.
I appreciate that, thanks.
Any additional questions for our panel? Okay, there's one final QR code up on the screen, and this is for a survey for today's session. And if there are any other questions, you're welcome to come meet our panel up here. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, one more question.
My name is Veronica. I just recently joined a company that is doing federal projects. They're considered small business. The challenge that I have encountered is the government portals. When you submit bids, when you are looking for questions to be answered. Example, recently, I don't know if you're familiar, I'm learning new roles. So where, aside from the resources that you have online, like the pies and all these government portals, is there do you have any suggestions of where else can I get some more training on that end or find additional resources?
What have you?
Being that I just got into it, I'm still learning the system myself, so
Okay.
I wish I had a better answer for you, but if afterwards I can make a few phone calls and find out and help you out.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, like, we don't personally, but, you know, there's a lot of companies, and they're probably actually exhibiting here. Like, I know Dell Tech does a lot of, like, monthly webinars where they actually kind of walk through a lot of this stuff like that. So that's one suggestion I would give, a specific, but, there are tons of resources out there. I would say that, you know, when you go on the exhibit floor, there's a lot of different service companies and stuff that offer things like that. So I would just, you know, in the exhibit hall, like I said, this is the only one I could think of off the top of my head. But there's plenty of people. I would be lying if I said I don't Google things. And, you know, there's a YouTube video for everything. So, you know, you could be the biggest pro of something, but I still rely on YouTube videos sometimes to walk me through it. I know that's not like a great example, great maybe what you're looking for, but this stuff is out there, and unfortunately I couldn't tell you, like, go to this website and all the answers are gonna be there for you. But there are some companies that do offer webinars that are really helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, another great question. Any final questions? Okay, thank you everybody for attending.